Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Kid in Life channel.
Well, good morning from the cold state of Mississippi. It's another winter day. It's 36 degrees outside. I hope everyone is staying warm and safe. We're going to get back into this New York Times.
Let me just say hi to people and let me get the microphone for you. Say hi, them. Talk to them.
Oh, well, apparently we lacking the microphone this early morning, but my better half is getting that. The Good Life, the title of the book, is a New York Times bestseller. It's written by Robert Wallinger and Mark Schultz. So here might be some bouncing around as we attach the mic. Well, the silence is deafening, but here we go. Now, in yesterday, we had got to page 57 on chapter 3. Chapter 3 is titled Relationships on the Winding Road of Life. And, we started talking about, or they started talking about Wes Travers.
Hold on, let me see. Life is connect with this. Okay. Still waiting for the people coming. So what we learned yesterday.
Well, that the study included many different people from different walks of life,
Mm-hmm.
and that one of the commonalities of this study
Mm-hmm.
is that no matter where you're from,
Mm-hmm.
relationships have a large impact on how a person goes through life
Uh-huh.
and whether it's going to be a satisfying life. I mean, this is 80, 85 years plus now. That's a long time to be studying people.
Okay. Today we will start page number 57.
7.
Your own mini Harvard study, right? Right here?
Well, yes, your own mini Harvard study. That's where we're starting right here. Your own mini Harvard study. If you've ever seen a picture of your mother or father as a young adult, you know how startling it can be. They seem like people we might have met along the road rather than the parents who created us. They often appear less burdened, more carefree, and somehow different. Pictures of ourselves at a younger age can be even more startling. We might look at our younger selves and feel a sweet nostalgia or maybe a sense of wistfulness as we're confronted with our physical changes, our abandoned dreams, our once treasured beliefs. For others, like Wes, looking back at a younger age reminds one of sorrow and challenges that are difficult to revisit. These impressions point to areas of our lives that are important to us, and they can be turned into something helpful using a simple, powerful exercise we developed for our Lifespan Research Foundation. And then they have a website, www.lifespanresearch.org. This involves a bit of personal research, but if you're game, come play along. Find a photograph of yourself when you were about half as old as you are now. If you're under 35, go back to the time when you were starting adult life. Really, any photo from when you were a lot younger will do. Don't just imagine that time, try to find an actual photo. The lively reality of a photograph, the details of the place and time, the expression on your face, all help evoke feelings that make this exercise worthwhile. Now take a close look at yourself in the photograph. After you stop wondering why you were so into brown clothes or marveling at your weight or your once luxurious hair, try to find yourself back in the moment when the picture was taken. Really look. Spend several minutes, a long time, just taking it in and remembering that era of your life. What were you thinking about back then? What were you worried about? What were you hopeful about? What were your plans? Who were you spending time with? What was the most important to you? And perhaps the most difficult question to face when you think of yourself at that time, what do you regret?
When you think of yourself at that time, what do you regret? Okay.
It helps put your answers to these questions into words. Jot down a few notes, be as detailed as you like. If you have someone close to you who's curious about this book you're reading, consider asking them to find a photograph of themselves and to do this with you. As longitudinal researchers, we suggest that if you have a printed photograph, consider using it as a bookmark. And when you're finished, leaving it here in this book along with your notes. Someone you know might get something out of it in the future as they try the exercise themselves. The records of our loved one past and thoughts are rare and valuable.
So this one they're talking about your own mini Harvard study.
Doing your own mini Harvard study.
Mm-hmm.
That's taking a young photograph of yourself
Uh-huh.
and uh, follow those questions. Try and
Mm-hmm.
answer, write them down and then write the answer down.
Uh-huh.
And the photograph of a younger self,
Uh-huh.
uh, well, that sort of provokes your memories.
Okay.
And you try and think about what you were thinking about back then at that age.
Uh,
You know, then they're saying after you finish this book,
uh-huh.
you put that photograph,
Uh-huh.
those questions, and the answers in this book. And someone, maybe our daughter or our son or grandkids,
Mm-hmm.
might read this book, see the photograph, see the questions and answers, and they in turn will do the same thing.
Mm.
And so it's like our own family Harvard research.
Okay.
Have you ever thought, well, I wish I had asked my parents these questions?
Yeah. Sometimes I think about that.
I do myself, and both my parents are already gone.
Uh
So
huh.
I, I have these questions, but I'll never be able to fully, you know, answer them. So they're saying you can sort of do this and set it up so someone later can see what you have gone through and maybe say, wow, that's interesting. Well, let me do the same thing.
Mm, 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 mm. Okay.
So, continuing on page 58, in the footsteps of history and beyond, the Harvard study is by no means the first effort to extract useful data from lifetimes of human experiences. For millennia, people have been trying to unlock the secrets of human life by looking at its patterns, and they have analyzed these patterns in all kinds of ways, often by categorizing them into stages. The Greeks had various versions of life stages. Aristotle described three: hypocrisy or Hippocrates, seven. By the time Shakespeare wrote about the seven ages of man in his famous All the World's a Stage, uh, in As You Like It, the idea of life happening in stages was likely familiar to his audience. Shakespeare, Shakespeare himself probably learned them in a grammar school. Islamic teaching also mentions seven stages of existence. Buddha teachings illustrate the 10 stages along the path to enlightenment using the metaphor of ox herding. Hinduism identifies four stages of life, or ashramas, and these echo many modern psychological life stage theories. The student, who learns about the world; the householder, who develops a calling and takes care of his or her family; the retiree, who retreats from family life; and the ascetic, who commits to pursuit of greater spirituality. Science has its own perspectives on the biological and physiological development of human beings. But for a very long time, science focused almost entirely on early childhood development. Until recently, psychological books had only short sections on the development of adults. Once someone reached adulthood, the thinking went, that person was fully formed. The only important change was that of decline, both physical and mental. In the 1960s and 70s, this perspective began to change. George Valiant, the director of the Harvard study from 1972 to 2004, was one of many scientists who began to see adulthood as a period of important flux and opportunity. It's hard to look at the Harvard study's longitudinal data and come to any other conclusion. There were also new discoveries about the plasticity of the human brain, showing that decreased brain volume and declining brain functions are not the only changes adults experience with age. Positive changes also unfold throughout the lifespan. In short, the most important Recent
Science
science
shows
shows that no matter where you are at in your life, you are changing, and not just for the worse. Positive change is possible.
positive change is possible.
I like that. Positive
Positive
change
change
is possible.
is possible.
So, no matter where you are in your life, you are changing, and not just for the worse.
You want to drink some water? Some coffee?
Yeah, let me get a
Mm-hmm.
drink here.
So we will start at page number 60. Timing is,
Timing.
oh, timing, not timing, oh, sorry. Timing is half of everything.
Yes. We find two perspectives particularly helpful in making sense of the life cycle. The first, introduced by Eric and Joan Erickson, framed adult development as a series of key challenges that we all face as we grow older. The second is the theory by Bernice Newgarten about the social and cultural expectations around the timing of events in our lives. The Ericksons identified life stages based on cognitive, biological, social, and psychological challenges, and they frame these as crises. We either do or we don't meet a particular challenge successfully. And at every point in life, we encounter at least one and often more than one of these challenges. For example, in young adulthood, we are faced with the challenges of establishing intimacy or becoming isolated. During this period, we find ourselves asking, will I find someone to love or will I remain alone? In midlife, we are faced with the challenge of establishing a sense of gener- general
Generativity.
or feeling a sense of stagnation. Will I be creative and contribute to the development of the next generation, or will I be stuck in a self centered rut? These Ericksonian stages have been used by psychologists and therapists for decades to put life's hurdles into a useful context. Bernice Newgarden, another pioneer in the study of how adults change, has a different take. Rather than defining life completely by a development clock, Newgarden has argued that society and cultural change development or that society and cultural shape development in important ways. Our upbringing and influences, that's friends, news, social media, movies, create a informal social clock or schedule of events that are supposed to occur at specific times in our lives. Social clocks differ from culture to culture and from generation to generation. Key events like leaving one's childhood home, entering into a committed long term relationship, and having children each have their own cultural value and places in the timeline. And we experience these important events as either on time or off time, based on whether we think we're meeting social society's expectations. Many who identify as LGBTO plus experience themselves
LGBTQ plus experience themselves.
as off time because some of the events used as markers reflect traditional heterosexual lifestyles. Newgarden said that she was herself off time in important ways. She married early and began her professional career late. In her theory, On time events help us feel that our lives are on track, and off time events create worry that we're not on track. We worry not because of off time events are inherently stressful, but because they don't fit others and our own expectations.
So,
So,
what they're talking about, you can drink some coffee. What they're talking about, timing is half of everything.
well, I think what they're saying so far in this section is that we as humans, because of culture,
Mm-hmm.
tend to time ourselves. We expect our education to occur early, become professionals,
Mm-hmm.
have a family,
Mm-hmm.
and then retire and start thinking about spiritual things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here they're saying that timing is not always cut and dried. You know, Ms. Newgarden, she did not uh, do it in this time frame type. Uh, well, okay, let's stop. She got married early
Mm-hmm.
and she became a professional later on in life. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, she finished her education after she got married, after
Okay.
she had kids, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And she became a professional, but not as others had done it in their timing. You know, she got married young, she had kids or husband, then she got her education, became a professional, apparently a psychologist, and so her life timing is sort of off compared to other people.
Okay.
And others
Like I did.
who identify, let's say,
TQ.
LGBTQ plus, they experience themselves as off time because the events used as markers reflect traditional heterosexual lifestyles, and that's not them. So their uh, off time becomes different than other people.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I think as a society uh, changes, our culture changes, I think you're going to see more uh, people adjusting their timing. Now, these two ideas, life as a sequence of challenges and variation in the cultural importance of events and their timing, go a long way towards explaining how we feel about ourselves and how we engage in the world at different points in our lives. But there is another way to look at the winding road of life through the lens of our relationships. Because human life is essentially social. When major changes deeply affect us, our relationships are usually a central element of what's in flux. When a teenager moves away from home, what is it that produces most of the powerful feelings involved? Living in a new place or making new friendships and being away from the parents? When two people marry, is it the ceremony, the event, or the bond that changes their lives? As we develop and change over time, it is our relationships that most often reflect back to us who we really are and how far we've come on our life path. A good life requires growth and change. This change is not automatic process that occurs as we age. What we experience, what we endure, and what we do all affect the trajectory of growth. Relationships are a central player in this growth process.
Relationships are central player in this growth process.
That's right. Other people challenge and enrich us. So they're saying that other people who enter our life and become involved with our life,
Mm-hmm.
they challenge and enrich our own lives.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, Nate and Sandra has challenged and enriched our lives
Mm-hmm.
just by giving us this book as a present.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
With new relationships come new expectations, new troubles, new hills to climb, and often we're not ready. Very few people, for example, are ever perfectly ready to become a parent. But becoming a parent and being responsible for a tiny human being has a way of making most of us ready. It pushes us.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow we live up to what we have to do. Relationship by relationship, stage by stage, and in the process, we change, we grow. That's why we're not the same as we are when we're young. We have changed,
We have changed.
and hopefully, we have grown. What follows is a short roadmap of these life changes or life stages as seen through the relationships that make them what they are. Compared to the vast literature available on the human life cycle, this is like a map drawn on a napkin. If you find it helpful, you can explore the references we put in the notes at the back of the book and take an even deeper dive. You might recognize yourself in some of your own challenges in what follows, and some of it might not apply at all. That's the case for everyone. But even if you don't recognize yourself at every stage, you might recognize people you know and love. And then it starts getting into what they call a lifetime of adult relationships, a mini roadmap.
A lifetime of adult relationships, a mini roadmap. So what they're saying here. So
So,
life of what her name?
well, there's two different theories being put here on this timing.
Uh-huh.
One is Eric and Joan Erickson, and the other one is Bernice Newgarden.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the let's see, Eric and Joan Erickson framed adult development as a series of key challenges that we all face as we grow older. The second is a theory given by Bernice Newgarden about the social and cultural expectations around the timing of the events in our lives. So, Eric and Joan Erickson feel that as we travel through life, we are expected to meet certain expectations. You know, go to school, uh, get an education, develop a relationship, get married, have children. have a professional career, retire, uh, and then become spiritual. Well, Bernice Newgarden, on the other hand, says that a lot of times culture and society
Mm-hmm.
uh, can tweak that timing. And she says uh, there's on time or off time based on whether we think we're meeting society's expectations. And then she used the uh, the LGBTQ plus uh, experience as an example that most of them feel like they're off time. They don't work in the same time frames that some other people do. And uh, Miss Newgarden says that's fine.
So different between you can have some coffee different for from two people. One people just step by step like you know uh, live with the normal most of people life live study marry and blah blah blah, but another one is sweet like have family first and then success in the in her uh, life like a career of their job or
Her timing
it.
experience uh, was different than others,
Uh-huh.
and other people experienced that off time events also. Uh, in her theory, on time events help us feel that our lives are on track, and off time events create worry that we're not on track. We worry not because of off time events are inherently stressful, but because they don't fit others and our own expectations.
Okay, so different between two people,
Yes.
but
But
finally
they say relationships are a central player in growth.
okay they point to relationship and then we will start with the topic of a lifetime of adult relationships, a mini roadmap.
A mini roadmap. And they start off with adolescence. This is 12 to 19. And they've got it walking on the tightrope. Let's start with that infamous life stage, the teenage years. This is a time of rapid growth, but also of contradictions and confusion. An adolescent's life burns with intensity as they ascend into adulthood. If we have teenagers in our lives, their path from childhood to adult life, excuse me,
Drink some coffee.
my,
Today, we apologize. Today we get up a little late, so haven't done breakfast
I
yet.
still have sleep in my throat. Yeah. If we have teenagers in our lives, their path from childhood to adult life can seem precarious for them and for us. Richard Bromfield captured the feeling of loving a teenager well when he described the tightropes that they string for their parents and the people around them. A teenager needs us to, here we go, hold but don't baby, admire but don't embarrass, guide but don't control, release but don't abandon.
Oh, this one, the one net get to. Oh no, no,
No,
different,
no.
different. Hold but don't baby, admire but don't embarrass, guide but don't control, release but don't abandon.
However unstable this stage might feel to the people around them, it feels even more precarious for teens themselves. They need to accomplish some big tasks as they move towards adulthood. Chief among them is figuring out their own identity. This involves experimenting with new kinds of relationships and changing existing relationships, sometimes dramatically. Through their encounters with others, teenagers develop new views of themselves, the world, and other people. From the inside, adolescents feel both exciting and scary. Possibilities abound, but so do anxieties as teenagers find themselves confronted with profound questions like, uh, what kind of person am I becoming? Who do I want to be like? And who do I not want to be like? What should I do with my life? Am I proud of who I am and who I'm becoming? How much should I try to become like someone I respect? Will I be able to make my own way in the world? Or will I always depend on the support of others? How do I know if my friends really like me? Can I count on them can I count on them to have my back? I'm having intense sexual and romantic feelings and they're blowing my mind. How can I manage this new intensity of intimacy and attraction? Excuse me.
Drink some coffee. At some point in these teen years, parental figures use
Usually fall off their pedestals and become ordinary, sometimes boring adults. This creates a temporary vacuum in the role model department. Parental figures remain necessary for support. That's food, rides, money. But the real action is with friendships, which are exciting if someone volatile, or if sometimes volatile, and can involve new levels of connection and intimacy. The question, who am I, is central, and teenagers often find themselves discovering who they are together, trying on new ways of being that include everything from styles of clothing to political beliefs to gender identity. For many people, close friends are never as central as they are when we're teenagers. From the outside, adolescence can look like a bundle of contradictions. To a middle aged parent, it may look like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That once adorable and adoring child is now a moody teen who is at one moment childlike and clingy, and in the next moment a disdainful know it all. The clever title of Anthony Wolfe's popular parenting book sums up a parental perspective on this period. Get out of my life, but first, could you drive me and Cheryl to the mall?
get out of my life. But first, could you drive me
And Cheryl to the
and
mall.
to the mall? So, what they're saying here?
Well, they're saying that adolescence is
Teenager.
yeah,
Yeah.
teenagers, adolescents.
Yeah, same thing.
They're in the process of changing from
Childhood to
to adulthood,
adult.
and that this is a very psychological,
In
trying time in their life.
Yeah,
because
I
they're trying.
remember when I raised my kids, and you can drink some water, some coffee. My kids is very difficult for that moment, you know. Uh, the teenager, they don't not really believe 100% that believe parents. They love to, you know, hang around with their friends, and, you know, look at the friend what they're doing, and they want to try new thing with the friends that I remember. Okay, so what they're saying here.
Well, you just covered it. You basically said with your own children, you felt that they were changing and that they needed you, but they did not need you. They wanted you, but they did not want you. So, this person, Richard Broomfield, says hold, but don't baby, admire, but don't embarrass, guide, but don't control, release, but don't abandon.
Can you explain that? Make it easy.
Well, hold, but don't baby. That means you can be emotionally comforting, but don't treat them
Like
like a,
the baby,
a very young baby.
they still want your
They still need,
support, need your support, and you know, need your care, but don't need like a baby. Let them alone. Let them alone sometime, but they still cannot handle all the life by themselves.
yeah. You
Uh-huh.
can still give them emotional support, but don't treat them like a baby.
Okay, and admire.
Admire, but don't embarrass.
Uh-huh.
You can say, "Oh, you're doing really well," and I think you're doing well in school and in your cheerleading or your football playing, but don't do it in front of other people to the point where the adolescent or the teenager is feeling embarrassed, like, oh, mom or dad, don't embarrass me.
Admire. The meaning of admire.
You give them you
Compliment.
appreciate.
Compliment them.
That's right.
The adolescent or teenager need, you know, someone to encourage, but not in front of friends, because they will feel like you compliment them to a lot, and they will embarrass.
You're
em-
overdoing it.
Overdo. Don't do it. Don't do overdo it. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
you compliment them, but not overdo it.
Yeah, see, it's not easy for the teenager. Guide but don't control.
Yeah.
It means like you can lead them to do something, but you have to use a strategy. Don't let them feel like you control them all the time. Have to do number one, have to do that, have to do this, number two, number three, something like that, right?
That's right.
Okay.
And release, but don't abandon.
Release but don't abandon. It means let them go. Uh, let them like a flexible.
Let them start exploring them doing things on their own.
Okay, but
But don't just say, oh, you know,
do what you want to do. That is not right, because sometimes they have no clue.
they feel alone.
They feel alone. Okay, so very difficulty for this moment to take care teenager, or I call adolescent. What you call
Adolescence.
adolescent? Drink some coffee.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
Back here it says grandparents who watch this transition in their own children might have a different perspective. To them, this same teenager may represent the joyous future of the world, and the grandchild shifting sense of self may seem like a necessary experimentation. All of these perspectives make sense, just as the scenario changes on a long road trip. When you look out at the world, what do you see depends on where you are in the life cycle. Taking another person's life perspective into account, taking it to heart, is a skill that we can learn. It requires some imagination and some effort, especially in the face of frustration. But it can help us spend less time complaining and criticizing and wishing that someone else was different and more time connecting and nurturing. So, this paragraph says all these things make sense if you look at a trip on down the road. The scenery changes as you travel. The experience you go through changes as you travel. What you see changes as you travel. That is part of the life cycle of a person. So you can take another person's life perspective into account. You can learn from it, and if they have a skill, we can learn that skill. It requires imagination and effort, and which can be frustrating, but it helps us spend less time complaining and criticizing. So we sometimes I this book I think is saying we get a little too critical, and I'm guilty. Uh, yeah, my oldest son when he was going through his teenage years, I I look back and I'm going, yeah, I thought it was difficult in some ways, and I was hoping that he would be successful in his life as he experienced it. And I was truly controlling at one point.
You feel regret now, huh?
Well, I also, in my raising of my eldest, I realized that he had to learn things on his own.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn that I have to step back, support him if he needs the support, but he was learning the best by learning on his own. He was experiencing things that he thought was important. I may never totally agreed with everything he did, but he learned from it. And he's a parent with two children of his own now.
If you are the parents, you want to drink some
If
coffee?
you are the parents, grandparents, mentor, teacher, coach, or role model of an adolescent, you might be asking, how can I best support them, even as they seem to want to be independent? What kind of things can we do to help them emerge from this period stronger and ready for adult life? And how can I survive their adolescence myself? We
How can
I survive
survive
their
their
adolescence.
myself? I don't get it. How
This
can
is a
I
question
survive?
that I think a lot of parents ask
Oh,
themselves.
okay. How can I do with my teenager
Yeah,
children? Okay.
how can I survive their teenage years?
Mm, 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 mm.
I I've got a short story. I had a good friend,
Uh-huh.
and his uh, his oldest son was my son's best friend,
Mm-hmm.
and we did things as a family. And he had a young uh, adolescent that was oh so sweet and loving at 12, that when she turned 13, it was like she turned into a werewolf. She became very moody, very demanding. Uh, and I imagine my friend was feeling like, what happened? Where did my daughter go? Uh, she was so sweet and and loving. Now she's changed.
Yeah.
And I feel lucky. I never went through that type of adolescence change. I imagine, I had two older sisters, and I imagine they sort of did the same thing. And so, I respect my parents for uh, going through changes of five adolescents.
Yeah, it's not easy. I went to that. It's really tough, and you have to use a lot of strategy how to raise them the right way. And sometimes you have to make yourself very strong.
Yes. Well, it gives you clues. First, don't be fooled by signals of teenage bravado and claims about being self sufficient. Teens need you.
Mm-hmm.
Some teens will show this by being clingy, but others may insist that they don't need anyone. Of course they do. In fact, a teen's relationship with adults may be more crucial than at any other time in life. Research tells us that there are advantages for adolescents who become more autonomous while still remaining connected to their parents. One participant in the student council study, that's the longitudinal research linked to Harvard study conducted with graduates of three colleges in the Northeast, was able to look back as an adult and see the emotional puzzle of her teen years more clearly. After she'd become a mother of four herself, she reflected on the way her perspective of her mother had changed and told researchers, there is a standard joke of Mark Twain's about how much his father learned between the time the boy was 15 and 20. It's that way with me and my mother. But of course, the change was in me, not her. For a long time, I sort of clung. I was very anxious when my mother was around. Mainly, I guess, because I was afraid she was going to be living my life for me instead of letting me be myself. Now I sort of realize how perfectly marvelous she is.
Wow, she lucky, right?
Yes, when this woman was a teenager, she was
Uh-huh.
scared that her mother was going to always
Control.
control her life,
Mm-hmm.
and that proved to be wrong. She was afraid that her mother was going to live her life instead of her.
Mm-hmm.
Now she sort of realizes how marvelous her mother was.
Marvelous.
Perfect.
Perfect. Mm. She lucky. Presence.
Presence matter.
Presence matters.
The adults an adolescent interacts with, as well as the cultural figures in today's saturated media environment, provide models for what life is and what it can be. So the availability of in-person real-time role models is extremely important. Life may be taking place increasingly online. More on that in chapter 5. But physical presence still really matters. The template of how an adolescent imagines life is heavily influenced by peers, teachers, coaches, parents, the parents of friends, which is a unappreciated group of role models, and as in Wes Travers' case, older siblings. So they're saying that in uh, a adolescent's life, role models, whether it's through social media or in real life, is important for adolescents. They, they see how these people are acting, how they are going through life, and they sometimes, unfortunately, they can emulate their role models, whether good or bad.
You know, I heard right now around the world, especially in Thailand, they just complain the teenager right now is changed a lot. It changed a lot uh, from the social media, make them learn a lot of things by themselves, and they don't believe the parents, especially the old-fashioned parents. They not agree in some way, you know, and make the parents is very straightful right now how to, you know, uh, help them or support them or lead them to the right way that they thought they're thinking. So I don't know. The social is different around the world, and what we call the new
Generation,
new thing, new the
progress.
yeah, it's a lot of technical what we call.
Well, yeah, there's technical advances that are going on all the time that have that are well, it's changing our culture worldwide, and this is it's not a local event that's going on. It's worldwide that social media is getting to our children, to our adults, and we're seeing, what other people are doing, and it's a influential uh, media that is maybe teaching good things, but it also may be teaching bad things.
Yes. So I don't know. This book is study like over 80 years ago how people have a good life. I don't know how we can. I want to, finish this one and see. And I don't know. This book can adjust to a new generation to be a good life like before or not.
Well,
I don't
I
know.
don't think this book is a method to adjust a person. I think this book is a study of how people interact with other people, especially forming relationships, and that these relationships have great influence on everyone around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they said relationship, the best relationships need to face better than make the phone call or better than like a video call. You need to touch each other like a communicate communicate like a face to face better.
Mhm.
So new generation doesn't want to do that. They feel like waste the time. You can see right now they don't want to make the phone call. They just message. That is worth. Even though talk by voice, they feel like okay, I waste the time to do that, so they just take, you know, they can take 10 people in same time, talk to 10 people in same time. But I don't think 10 people that they take and talk will compare to the relationship that you talk face to face each other with people.
It doesn't have the same effect as face to face interactions, is what you're saying, right?
Yes. So we will study and let's see what the result of the studying almost 100 years ago, I can say, over 10
Well, going
80.
on
Yeah.
85 years ago.
Yeah, 85 years ago, and now I think they're still continuing
Yes.
study. So maybe they will produce another book, and let's see what is changing, how to make you have a good life. But the thing is, now I can get very important is relationship. But the relationship, how to make relationship, the quality of relationship for new generation.
Mm. Well, as they say in this here, guide but don't control, release but don't abandon. I think even nowadays, or even now for adolescents and young adults, those are great uh, advice. Guide but don't control, release but don't abandon. Don't give up on people. You can also give advice, but you can't try and control people.
So I think the important, the senior or elderly need to learn about social media. You can, you know, uh, adjust yourself to teenager and talk to them, communicate with them. If you not learn and if you know nothing and you cannot connect it, you cannot connecting what we call communicate with them very well, because the way they thinking maybe is different from your thought long times ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, times change, uh, methods of communication change, um, and I think guidance, advice can change.
Hmm.
Um,
So we need to learn and continuing learning, learning by doing, study some of new uh, knowledge.
well,
I can say.
they talk about on time and off time experience. Timing is half of everything. And they just talk about timing of our learning experiences. So, are we currently in this stage of society and culture? Are we switching more to off time learning, or is it still a variable? We're learning on time and off time at the same time.
Hmm.
So, these are things that may have to be decided on.
So we will leave to page number 65.
Yes,
Tomorrow we
we'll
will
start with Wes's sibling steps up.
tomorrow. same time, 10 o'clock.
Yes.
So, and I try to, edit the life we have and make the video to people, and they can study with us easier. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning.
Uh-huh.
And again, from the cold state of Mississippi. And we hope that everyone stays safe and sound during this time. Again, there's some things going on with the cold weather and with the fires out west in California. So stay safe, stay warm, and love each other.
Thank you so much. Have a great day in US, and have a good night overseas in Thailand and somewhere else. We'll see you again tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Yes, good night overseas.
Bye bye.